All right, everyone, we're going to get started with today's webinar, What's New in Autotask. This is a part of our Mastering Breakage series where we take a look into different areas of breakage that may improve your workflow, a bit of what's new, and also what's to come. So, welcome to today's webinar. I'm Danielle Ungerman, one of the customer success managers here at Breakage, and today I have Rick from our integrations team helping lead us through what's new with our new Autotask data source. So before we begin, I'm just going to lead you through a couple things that we have coming up as far as events go. We have a couple more webinars over the next month. We have one next week with an Australian-based customer covering customer touch points with reports. So this is from that initial acquisition period all the way through to recurring reviews. So be sure to RSVP for that. We'll send a link out with the follow-up recording for this webinar. And then next month, we have another Mastering Breakage webinar on July 10th. This is focused around best practices for organization and account cleanup. So after this webinar, you'll find, and especially for those who are making the transition from one version of our Autotask data source to another one, account cleanup is going to be your best friend and save you a lot of time as you just put in better practices for keeping track of what you have in place, what's in use, and what's no longer useful too. So a regular review is very helpful for that, and we'll go through it in next month's webinar. Now, today we're going to go through a little bit of what's new in Breakage, something exciting to share with all of you. And then we'll hand it off to Rick here to touch base on what's come out in the new Autotask data source, what's available to you, and also just to answer some of your general questions there. Feel free to pop them in the chat along the way and let us know if there's anything that we can answer to as we're going through each section of this. So first things first, what's new in Breakage? Public dashboards. This is something that a few of you have been asking for a while now, and we recently launched public gauges. Now we have a public dashboards for this. So if you go to the link that I have there, breakage.com/public-gauges-dashboards, you'll be able to see more information on both features, public dashboards and gauges, as well as what's required to set them up. So for those who are already on our Enterprise plan, Enterprise Plus plans, if you go to the More section of any dashboard you'd like to set a public URL for, you can scroll down there as you see in the example here. Click on More, Public URL, and then there you go. It's live and available for you to share with your customers directly without having to have them log in, as well as team members and higher ups in your company that you just want to quickly give a pulse check on where a few areas of, say, their billing, ticket stats, where all of that stands in that moment. Now, yes, I jumped a little ahead of myself here in this one. The recording will be available, so for those who need to duck out early or would like to send this along to someone else on their team thereafter, the recording will be sent out over email. You can also access it over breakage.com/webinars, and you can check out previous recordings there as well. And then we have a new landing page on our website for those who want to keep up to date with events that we're attending, so conferences, workshops we're holding, as well as future webinars that we're hosting. You can go to breakage.com/events. Now I'm going to hand it off to Rick here to go over what's new with our new Autotask data source. So, Rick?
Thanks, Danielle. Hey, everyone. How's it going? Rick Quillier from Breakage here. I'm one of our integration developers, and I handle a lot of the work that you'll be seeing today for the new Autotask integration. So first things first, kind of dive into things. Since all of you probably do use Autotask, we just want to point out some of the differences that you're going to see. But first, if you see the old logo on the left-hand side there, that means you're on the V1 instance of the original Autotask integration. So after reviewing everything that we're going over today, if you do see that and you want to be on the new integration, just reach out to our success team or even the support team, and we'll be able to get you set up. Now, I want to talk about why we decided to essentially revamp the integration, and instead of updating the old one, why did we create a new one? Excuse me. So first and foremost, we really want to match how you are using Autotask. And in order for us to do that, we reached out to a ton of customers, we got their feedback, and we also wanted to see what their pain points were. Now, those pain points, they came from both Autotask and also Breakage. So we wanted to see, hey, what are you doing in Autotask that you're not able to do in Breakage, and how can we make that a lot easier for you? So essentially, the takeaways here are we got a lot more data, we created new report templates, and probably one of the biggest takeaways and one of the biggest requests that we received was the ability to tap into user-defined fields. So for those of you that have been with us for a while, that's probably been a pain point for you, and you know you probably had requests for those user-defined fields, and it wasn't something we were able to do. But today, we're happy to say that we could pull on those user-defined fields. So if it's something that you're interested in, definitely reach out to our support team, and they'll be able to take care of you there. On top of that, we're no strangers to releasing a ton of default gauges. So there's 200 plus KPIs available within the integration now. We also have some great updates surrounding SLA. So a little bit of a spoiler here regarding the business hours, but we'll dive into that a little later. So first things first, we're going to jump into sales because this is something we were slightly limited on in the sense that we didn't have a bunch of default gauges to really dive into. And we just love having a bunch of gauges out of the box for you to utilize because we don't expect you to reinvent the wheel. We want you to have something that you can use, customize to your liking, and really get more value out of the product. So here's one of the first default gauges that we've added. It's pretty straightforward. It's just a number of opportunities based on sales stage. But we think it's going to be a great value because this is something that was requested through a lot of our conversations. But some of the big things are really going to come in the form of contracts. Now, initially, we were only able to report on contract blocks, and that only included the estimated revenue associated with the contract. Now, we all know that is somewhat helpful, but in terms of calculating an accurate EHR, it's not going to bring the most value, So in our conversations, everybody was asking, hey, we really need the actual revenue. And I'm proud to say that now within Breakage, you can report on the actual revenue per contract. Now, to kind of go into these gauges here, you'll see that we do have this estimated revenue by contract type. And that kind of contradicts what I just said, but we do have an actual revenue by contract type, which you can use. Now, you'll see here that our little funnel gauge here, this is somewhat new. It's a new gauge type, but it's going to allow you to break up those contract types by the amount of revenue that's associated with that. So if this is something you're interested in, it should be available in your account if you're on the V2 version. So definitely have a look and work on customizing it because we know that not everybody has the same contract type. So the values that you're seeing here will likely need to be customized for your setup, but it's very straightforward. And as always, if you do run into issues when you're trying to customize this, just reach out to our team and they'll be standing by to assist. On top of that, some more basic metrics here, such as open opportunities by the next step. This is something that was highly requested in the sense that our clients, they said that they want to be able to see opportunities where, maybe they're open, there's a next step, it's sitting stale, and they just want to know who's being held accountable for that and just what they need to do to, close that out. And then we also have the amount on opportunities closing by day over the next 30 days. So our gauge here is using dummy data. It's going to be the most valuable outlook. But if this is something that you're interested in, you should have a more robust data pool if you look at it within your account.
Hey, Rick, would you mind just skimming back a couple slides to, I just want to point out, let's see, to the one before that.
This one?
Before that one. So for those who are asking, we just got a question that came in on how do I know which version of Autotask I'm on? So for those newer customers who have just signed up with us, you'll see that you have the logo on the right here for Autotask Professional Services Automation. So if this is the logo that you're working with, then you're fine. You have all of this, what you see here available to you. Now, if you're still on this older version of Autotask, you may want to consider reaching out to success@breakage.com to help you make the migration over to the new version here. Again, the newer logo with the full Autotask Professional Services Automation. I'll give it back to you.
Cool. Thank you. All right. Let's see. Where were we? All right. So moving into I'm diving right back into the sales portion. We also created some report templates to go along with this. So basically everything that you're going to be seeing today, on top of the default gauges, on top of the default dashboards, we also wanted to bring a lot more value in terms of the reports that we were offering, because we do realize that we were a little, there wasn't much to work with there. I think we only had 2 default report templates out of the box initially for our clients to work with. So we really wanted to pump that up a little bit more so you had more access. So here's a nice little sample of the BGS Sales Daily. I can't see the name, but the Sales Daily wrap up. And I put my computer to sleep. Sorry. And this just has some basic metrics on it. Opportunities created today, opportunities closed, are any of them active, stale? And of course, you're able to see the active opportunities by the sales stage that they're in. Now, this report doesn't have all of the gauges that you'll have when you look at it within your account, because we were working with a dummy database. So some of the gauges weren't showing any worthwhile information. But when you open this report within your account, you'll be able to see everything that's within it and customize it for your liking. Now, some of the biggest updates all came around with project data. Now, in our discussion with the customers, we realized that working with projects within Autotask itself required a lot of clicks to really see the information that you were looking for. And that's really something that we wanted to reduce within BrightGauge. But before diving into that, I found it very funny, because we only had 1 default gauge for projects with the original Autotask integration. We really wanted to bring more value to that. So we created a total of 17 default gauges that all of you will be able to utilize. So here's some of the top 3, from our discussions, and they will be available within your account for you to utilize. But on top of that, we also created a brand new dashboard. Now, this one's a personal favorite of mine, because I don't know if you've been with us for a while, you've probably realized that those number gauges in the middle, they tend to be on the left-hand side. I want to switch it up. It's a little minor fun thing. But to kind of go over this is just a grand project overview. So you're going to be able to see how many projects are open per the project lead. Is there anything stale? What's scheduled to be worked on for this week? What's scheduled to end this week? And is there progress being made there? And all of this is going to be fully drilled down. You'll be able to drill down into it, see the information for those projects, and then follow up with anybody that would be necessary. Another cool thing about this is we do have our dashboard filtering option. So if this is something that you want to filter down to a specific member, maybe a specific company, or just for a specific team that handles projects, you'd be able to do so. And you can set that up on a per individual, per team, or per company basis, and they'll see the data that's relevant to them. Now, on top of that, another highly requested feature for projects was being able to account for project phases and also the tasks associated with projects. So I'm proud to say that both those items are now available. We have default gauges to go along with it. So if phases and tasks are something that you're actively monitoring and you want to review, you're going to be able to do so within the new Autotask integration. Now, another highly requested item, and something that we didn't account for at all previously, was service calls. So if you use Autotask, I'm sure you're familiar with service calls. And there's two adjustments that we made in terms of how we're pulling this into the product. So the first item that we added was the service call scheduled field to the ticket-based data sets. Now, this is just going to be a Boolean-based field that simply shows whether or not a ticket has ever had a service call attached to it. So if it has, you see on the right-hand side there, we have that little check mark. That means that ticket had a service call and everything is fine. However, if there's a ticket that never had a service call attached to it, you're going to see the little error icon. Now, this is going to be great because you'll be able to address things proactively, make sure your schedules are getting set up, and then make sure that whoever's responsible for the ticket knows what they need to do moving forward. Something else that was highly requested was on the left-hand side, you'll see how this is displayed within Autotask, and we really wanted to replicate that look within BrightGauge. So I think we did a pretty good job here. If you compare the two, we even got the icons in there and things are looking pretty all right. So if this is something that you do utilize on a daily basis, definitely have a look and you'll be able to customize it in any way you'd like. If you want to see the specific resource and what sort of schedules they have in place for the day or even the week, you'd be able to do so by simply adding a filter within the gauge builder. And then, of course, as I stated previously, we do have these great report templates to go along with it. So if you wanted to set up a report for a specific technician or even all your technicians that do work on these tickets so they can see what they're scheduled to work on and what their expectations are for either the day or the week, you can do so. And you could do so because we do have a reporting filtering option. And it's really straightforward to set up, and you could schedule this to go out on a time frame that you deem is appropriate. And that technician or even that team will be able to see exactly what's on their radar and what they're going to be scheduled to work on. Now, keeping with the technician resource theme, this is another area we found that we were lacking in. I'm not sure how many gauges we initially had for resources, but it wasn't many when we compared to our other integration offerings. So we really wanted to beef it up a bit. So in this area, we created a total of 22 new defaults for you to utilize. Now, these are going to be basic metrics, just like you see here. Tickets overdue per resource. We have tickets open per resource. Kill rate, which is just how many tickets were assigned to the resource and how many did they close. But, as I stated earlier, we don't expect you to reinvent the wheel. We want you to have these gauges out of the box for you to utilize. So they're there for you to customize. So if you have a blocking point where you want to build resource specific metrics with the integration, but you just don't know where to start, just go into the listing of gauges within your account, type in resources, and you're going to see all these metrics available for you to utilize. And then on top of that, we also have our, did I skip a slide here? Yes. So we also added a resource scorecard dashboard. Now, this is a great grand overview for basically all your text that shows open tickets, closed tickets, the actual hours, billable hours, and of course the tickets updated. Now, I skipped over billable hour utilization because if you're familiar with the original integration, you probably realize that this gauge looks a little familiar. And that's because we made a minor addition to it that we found was extremely valuable, and that's that billable hour utilization. So what that's looking at is just saying, okay, let's take Jamie in the upper left-hand corner there, for example. She entered in, 0.5 hours for the week, but of those hours, 0.25 was billable. So her billable utilization is fantastic. And this is just going to be a great way for you to ensure that your techs are being efficient with their time, that their tickets aren't sitting stale. And, maybe they're updating a ton of tickets, but they aren't solving many. You'll be able to pinpoint those issues and really address that with them and figure out ways that you can improve that workflow in the future. Another cool thing about this dashboard is you can also filter this using the dashboard filtering option. So if you wanted to filter it for a team, specific member, give them an idea as to what their queue looks like, you're able to do so with that feature. And if you're unsure where that is, if you look in the upper right-hand corner there, basically right underneath the green plus icon, you'll see the ability to add a filter. If you've never used that before, I can't stress enough, reach out to support. We have our documentation available as well if you prefer to review it that way, but we're always standing by to assist to get those things set up. And next, we also, sticking with the scorecard theme, we added some reports surrounding it. Now, these reports are the same gauge that you saw on the dashboard before, but these are a little cool in terms of the functionality that I've seen our clients use with these. So we have daily and weekly versions, and what I've seen our clients do is for the daily, you can set that up on a tech-specific basis. So you can have it scheduled to send out at 7 a.m. every day. Technicians are going to be able to see, their open tickets, closed tickets, how much time they're entering for the week, and so on and so forth. Whereas the weekly version, that's probably more manager specific. So if you want to see how the team is doing, is there anyone that you need to speak to, anything that needs to be addressed, that's a great way to utilize it. And like I said, if you're on the new version, this is available within your account now, and you can get that set up and going. Next, we'll dive kind of back into the sales portion because another highly requested feature was the ability to tap into account notes. Now, we created a brand new data set for this, and we also created around, I'd say 7 to 10 gauges, which, just to use this functionality. So this is pretty straightforward. When a sales rep is dealing with a customer, we all know that they can go in there and add notes. Maybe they don't like being called in the morning. Maybe you're better off reaching them in the afternoon, or maybe they're just a bad fit and you don't want to reach out to them again. You're able to report on all of that and more with this account notes data set. And you may be wondering, why didn't we add this to the opportunity data set? And why is it a brand new data set? And that's because a single opportunity can have a ton of notes associated with it, or even a single account can have a ton of notes associated with it. So we really wanted to account for all those notes. And if we were to add that to one of those other data sets, we'd run into an issue with duplications. So we thought it'd be best just create a brand new one. On top of that, like I said, we have those brand new gauges. So you'll see here, number of notes per account. You could filter that for a specific date range that you would like. And on the right-hand side there, you'll see the opportunities closed versus the notes added per resource. So if you have your sales team closing opportunities, you want to see what sort of notes they're entering for the week, you're able to report on that with these gauges. Excuse me. Now, some of my favorite updates surround the ticket statistics data sets. Now, the first one's pretty straightforward, but I think it's a pretty huge win. Now, with ticket statistics, a common support ticket we would see is our clients would build gauges, historical metrics such as tickets closed in the last 6 months, but they would do this on Ticket Stats Lite. Now, it wasn't always clear that Ticket Stats Lite has a reduced date range when compared to its more robust version, Ticket Statistics, in the sense that Ticket Stats Lite was only looking at the last 14 days. So to make this more clear, we wanted to update the naming convention. So we just switched it to Ticket Statistics last 14 days and Ticket Statistics last 210 days. So it's a small change, but it should make it very clear as to what sort of data that you're dealing with. And now you'll be able to, properly identify which data set you should be using for the specific metric that you're looking to build out. Now, what I mentioned earlier when we just got started, the little spoiler before, initially, when we were dealing with SLA fields, such as time to response, time to resolution plan, and time to resolution, your business hours were not reflected within the calculation. This is very problematic because it really stripped the value away from these fields. And I'm proud to say that these fields now properly account for all your business hours. So let's say you have a ticket that comes in at 5:20 p.m., you're closing in 10 minutes, probably not going to get to reply to it, but your SLA is to respond in 30 minutes. With the original setup, that all those hours would have been accounted for within that calculation, and it would have looked terrible. However, now that timer is going to pause as soon as your business is closed, and it's not going to continue until you reopen the next day so you can get proper and accurate SLA reporting. And on top of that, for those of you that may not be using us, I just want to give you an idea as to what's possible in terms of tickets with Breakage. So this is one of our default dashboards for service ticket KPIs. And this just gives you a grand overview of how your tickets are doing. So you can see how many tickets are opened, how many were closed today. Are there any tickets that are in a high priority that need to be addressed? You can see that in the upper left-hand corner, how many of your tickets are waiting. And of course, in the bottom, you have the historical view showing you, okay, are our tickets trending upwards? What's going on? And just how's the general ticket flow going throughout the last 14 days there? And again, you could filter this in any way you would like. If you have a specific queue with an Autotask that you'd like to see, you could bring those numbers down. Or even, you have a specific team you want to monitor their queues for, or even, like I said earlier, those member-specific, that member-specific dashboard. This is a great option for that because let's say you have your service team and you want each member to have a clear view of what their work is looking like for the day. You could set this up for them and they'll have something that they can review, drill down into, and know exactly what's expected of them or what they should be prioritizing for the day or the week.
Rick, I'm just going to jump in real quick to follow up to our previous slide. We got a question. Is Breakage pulling business hours in from Autotask?
Yes, we are pulling. So within the Autotask endpoint, it's actually something, the API endpoint, that's actually something that they set up on their end. So if you have your business hours set up within Autotask, it's going to properly reflect the Breakage. That's a great question.
That's
cool. All right. Now, another highly requested feature, and probably, I feel like I said all these updates were my favorite, but that's okay, because they're all great, but the live ticket SLA data. So with the original integration, we did not have the ability to show you tickets that were about to breach a specific SLA. Now, what this means is, with the live ticket SLA data, you're able to see how many tickets are going to breach the response SLA, the resolution plan SLA, or the resolution SLA within a set amount of time. So let's say you want to see all tickets that are going to breach resolution SLA in the next 30 minutes. You're able to set that up, and we even have default gauges, so you don't even need to create it from scratch. But you're able to set that up, see those tickets, and proactively address them before they breach that specific SLA. And on top of that, you're also able to see which of those tickets already breached those SLAs. And that's one of the default gauges that we have here. So you're able to set this up and see, okay, which of my tags had their response breached, the res plan breached, or the resolution breached, and get a clear view and see how things are going. So that's a great update. And it's also important to note that this is not a separate data set. These fields live within ticket statistics last 14 days. So we have everything in one place. You don't need to worry about, using data set matchup to get your metrics up and running. And it's really going to be clear and concise as to how to get everything up and running, and you'll get the data that's important to you. On top of that, another sample dashboard kind of showing it off. So in the upper left-hand corner there, you'll see that there's a gauge showing tickets breaching resolution plan within 60 minutes. You can go in there, drill into it, see who those tickets are assigned to, and if needed, you can have that chat. And of course, we also have the breach resolution gauge in there. And we also have default gauges built out for all these SLA levels. So I think the examples that we have are for, tickets breaching response in 60 minutes, tickets breaching res plan in 60 minutes, and tickets breaching resolution in 60 minutes. And we also have the opposite, where you're able to see which tickets breached each SLA level and get a grand overview of that. And then lastly, reports. So we said in the beginning, we really wanted to dive into the reports and make it a lot more robust than it was. And the way we did that was we had a lot of our clients show us some of the report templates that they were using within Autotask, and we tried to create those to the best of our ability within BrightGauge. So if you have a look at this GIF here and compare it to the Autotask report on the left, I'd say we did a pretty good job in bringing that over. So if that's something that you're interested in, definitely have a look, customize it, and even feel free to add some gauges to it if needed. And then, of course, if you need help setting up the Autotask, or even if you're uncertain if you are on the latest version, just reach out to our success team. They're always standing by to assist, and they're happy to do so. And then they'll get you up and running. And of course, if there's any other questions related to some of the gauges or anything of that nature, you can always reach out to our support team at support@brightgauge.com, and they'd be more than happy to assist further.
Yeah, so we're in the process now with this new release of helping a number of our users migrate to the new version. If you've only recently signed up with BrightGauge in the last few months, you should already be on the new version. So just go through your gauges, your report templates, your dashboards, and you'll see all of those listed out there. You can also check out the dataset section of your account and see which associated gauges match up with your Autotask data source there. So yeah, we have some time now to run through a few questions. I see that we have one that's come in about, let's see here, first response time taken and time taken for opening a ticket to resolution. So I'm guessing the question there is, are we pulling that in, and what sort of data is being filtered?
So yeah, it sounds like it's a timed resolution, right? So, the amount of time that's taken from time the ticket was open to the time it ultimately closed. Am I understanding correctly? Yeah, so we do have all those fields available as well, and those were actually available on the original integration as well. So that's just going to be your time to response, time to resolution plan, and time to resolution. And just like everything else that we discussed here, we do have default gauges for all those SLA levels, so you can see exactly how much time it's taking for your tickets to traverse those SLA levels. So let's say you're interested in the response one. If you look at your gauges within the account, you'll see a search bar. If you just type in time to response, you'll see a bunch of gauges built out that are monitoring just that. And you'll be able to see, the others as well, such as res plan and resolution. We have a nice collection. I think you'd be happy with the results there.
Yeah, and if you're not quite sure of how to find what you're looking for, again, just searching through those keywords, starting to type out a little bit, you'll be able to pull it up. Again, it's over 200 default KPIs provided to you. So we know that it can be a bit of a load to sort through. So you can always reach out for that too if you have any questions on what's available. Again, to look this up in your account, just go to the gauges section, and then you'll see on the top left under the search bar the option to sort for default. And then you can sort by data source. So that'll list out everything that's provided to you as far as KPIs go through your Autotask connection with BrightGauge. Let's see. And then another question is, how do you know which dashboards to work with?
Oh, that's definitely a great question. I mean, I always like to say it depends what you're really trying to, dive into. If you know you're going to be looking at for anything ticket related, you can always just start there. And it's kind of open-ended because I've seen a lot of dashboards that combine a lot of areas of breakage. We have our time entries, our tickets, opportunities, etc. So you just want to try to find one that fits everything that you're trying to build off of. And then if needed, you can always add more to it. With our dashboards, you do have the flexibility to customize it. So just find something that has the majority of what you're looking for. And then you could take away the fluff. You can add something that's more important for your needs. And then just really make it a dashboard of your own. And that's probably the best way to go about it, right? Just see which one has the most of what you're looking for and then work on customizing it so it meets your needs 100%. I hope that's the best way to answer. That's a good question.
I think that's helpful. We don't have any more questions, but I think another good point to go over. Well, if anyone has any more questions before we end the webinar here, please just throw them into the chat. For now, I'm just going to ask Rick if you have any insights into which filters are the best filters to use for dashboards and reports. What do we see the most of
here? Yeah, definitely. So in terms of Autotask, the number one filter that I see used constantly is going to be that queue field. Now, a big pain, I don't even want to say a pain point, like a cause for concern when our clients jump in to using the product for the first time is that they see those dashboards, they see those gauges, and they see those numbers are heavily inflated. And it's just not reflecting what they're expecting to see. And that's because many of our gauges, basically all of them, they don't come with those filters that are specific to your setup. So let's say you only want to see tickets that are on your service desk or your help desk and things of that nature. Those filters will need to be added. So I would definitely say that when you're diving into this for the very first time, add those dashboard filters for a specific queue, or maybe you want to see a specific resource to kind of add on to Danielle's question here. You can use that. There's something called a resource name field, and that's just going to filter down basically every ticket related metric, every time entry related metric down to that specific user that you're looking at. But at the end of the day, definitely add that queue field because that's going to bring the biggest value and ultimately show you the data that you're looking for in an accurate way.
Awesome. I learned something new too. We have just one more question here on excluding holidays and weekends from reports and other areas.
Yeah, so that's a problem that we're still trying to solve here. Unfortunately, that's not something that Autotask makes available via their API endpoint. But we're constantly in the discussions with them. They're very helpful in terms of getting things added. And it's something that we've requested, but just no traction yet. And we're also looking for ways that we can accomplish this ourselves on the back end of things. But of course, there's no ETA on that, unfortunately. It's been a discussion we've been having for a long time. But it is a problem that we are hoping to solve one day.
So at this point, is there a workaround for it?
Unfortunately, no. Yeah.
And then we had another question just come in on whether these gauges are available in the Enterprise version, Enterprise Plus, previous versions.
So we don't. Most of them should be available on both versions. We don't have many gauges, in terms of these improvements that utilize features that are on the Enterprise Plus, but there are a few that utilize the layers and like data set mashup. I believe the project one where you saw the phases and the tasks, that one would require the Enterprise Plus plan. But apart from that, you should have full flexibility regardless of the plan that you're on, at least for these updates.
Yeah, and as far as these are still shared with all accounts, you just may not see the data coming in for it.
Yeah, precisely.
So when you see it, it'll have a lock screen on it.
Yeah, it has a little lock. So if it's a plan specific, you'll see it immediately. Like you'll see the gauge within your account, but when you click on it, you'll see a little lock in there, just like Daniel said. So
yeah. And again, anything that you have questions about, need help with, especially if you're looking to migrate from one version of Autotask to the other, you can reach out to success@breakage.com. We'll help steer you in the right direction. And thanks again, everyone, for joining us on today's webinar. We'll follow up with some resources over email with that recording and some next steps for you to get more out of your breakage. Thanks, Rick.
Yep. Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Have a good day.